I was sitting in my office, 38 floors above the city, when my phone buzzed against the glass desk. The sound was sharp, like a reminder I hadn't asked for. My assistant had just stepped out, and for a second, the room was completely still, just me, the skyline, and that insistent vibration. I adjusted the sleeve of my silk blouse, the pale cream fabric catching the light as I reached for the device. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen in years. Ethan. My cousin. I almost laughed. After everything, he had the audacity to call me now. I stared at the name for a moment, remembering a different time, a different me. The girl who had nothing, who everyone dismissed. The girl Ethan had once mocked so casually when he snatched my phone from my hands as if I didn't matter. That single act, so small, so petty, had changed everything. Now, the city bowed at my feet. My network stretched across industries, continents, and boardrooms. Yet here I was, pulse racing at the sight of his name on my screen. I let the phone ring, each buzz pulling me deeper into memories I'd worked so hard to bury. Because the truth was, my empire began the day my cousin took my phone. I was 19 when it happened, just a broke college sophomore, working night shifts at a diner to cover rent, too tired most mornings to even brush my hair properly before class. My phone was the cheapest model I could afford, its screen cracked across the corner, held together by a flimsy case I bought at a gas station. Ethan never let me forget it. He was older by 2 years, already interning at a tech firm, wearing expensive sneakers and that smug grin that made my stomach twist every time he walked into a room. Family dinners were his stage, and I was just his easiest punchline. That night, I was sitting in the living room of my aunt's house, scrolling through half-written assignments and overdue bills on my phone. Ethan sauntered over, loud and careless as always, and without warning, he snatched the device right out of my hand. Seriously, Claire? This fossil? I think my old Game Boy had better service than this thing, he sneered, holding it up high so I couldn't reach. My cheeks burned. My younger cousins giggled from the couch, their laughter stitching humiliation into my skin. Give it back, Ethan, I whispered, my voice trembling despite how hard I tried to sound calm. He scrolled through my apps, mocking every notification, unpaid tuition reminders, job board emails, a text from my manager asking if I could cover yet another late shift. Wow, he said, you don't even have a social life to stalk. Just bills and desperation. Honestly, Claire, no wonder nobody takes you seriously. My throat tightened, the lump rising faster than I could swallow it down. My hands shook as I reached for the phone, but he only pulled it further away, smiling like this was entertainment. Then my grandmother's voice cut through the laughter.
Ethan.
Her tone was sharp, laced with that authority only grandmothers could carry. Give her phone back. Ethan rolled his eyes, but he tossed it to me. I clutched it to my chest like it was the last shred of dignity I had. Later that evening, when the house had quieted, my grandmother found me sitting alone on the porch steps. She handed me a folded piece of paper. Inside, in her looping handwriting, were 5 words. What they mock, you master. I didn't know it then, but those words would follow me for years, carved into the very foundation of the woman I would become. That night, I promised myself, through the tears and the sting of humiliation, that I'd never let anyone laugh at me like that again. And I would never, ever be powerless. The promise I made that night didn't turn into action right away. For weeks, I carried those words my grandmother gave me folded inside my wallet, like a secret no one else could see. What they mock, you master. They became a pulse, a quiet thrum every time I opened my phone, every time I felt the sting of Ethan's laughter replaying in my head. I started small. I didn't have money, but I had curiosity. I spent nights at the campus library, sneaking into the computer lab after hours, teaching myself things I had no business understanding: coding, web hosting, the architecture of networks. My classmates were out drinking cheap beer on Fridays, while I was under the fluorescent glow of the lab, surviving on instant coffee and vending machine granola bars. There were nights I wanted to quit. Nights when the screen blurred in front of my eyes, when every line of code felt like gibberish. My hands would shake from exhaustion as I typed, whispering to myself, "They will not laugh at you again." Then a shift. One of my professors, Dr. Harris, noticed the way I lingered after class, peppering him with questions that went far beyond the syllabus. Instead of brushing me off, he leaned in. "Claire," he said one afternoon, adjusting his glasses, "you think like a builder, not just a student. Don't waste that." He gave me access to extra resources, and when I confessed I couldn't afford certain software, he found ways to get me free licenses. He never made me feel like charity. He made me feel like potential. The first win was small. A local bakery near campus needed a website, and the owner couldn't afford a big firm. I built it for $100. The check felt like gold in my hands. That site led to another, and then another. Before I knew it, I wasn't just making side money, I was building a portfolio. But I didn't post about it. Not on Facebook, not on Instagram. My family thought I was still just grinding through classes and shifts at the diner. When my mom asked if I was okay financially, I told her I was managing. I didn't mention the night I stayed up until dawn to launch my first paid server. I didn't mention the exhilaration of watching traffic flow through something I created. By the time I graduated, I had more clients than I could handle alone. I moved into a tiny apartment with peeling paint and a leaky faucet, but it was mine. And in that apartment, on a cheap folding desk with a second-hand monitor, I built the foundation of what would become my empire. Every insult, every laugh, every time Ethan had waved my cracked phone in the air like it was proof of my worthlessness, it all became fuel. I didn't just want a seat at the table. I wanted to own the table, the room, and the building it was in. And so, quietly, methodically, I began. The call from Ethan didn't surprise me as much as it should have. Men like him only reached out when they needed something. Still, when I agreed to meet, I felt that familiar tightening in my chest, the echo of 19-year-old me, humiliated and small. He arrived at my office the next afternoon, swagger still intact, but thinner now. Life had carved lines around his eyes. He wore an expensive watch, but his suit didn't fit as sharply as it once did. Behind him, my aunt, my uncle, and even two younger cousins trailed in, their faces curious and expectant. They thought they were walking into a favor. My assistant led them through the glass doors and into my office. It always struck first-time visitors like a shock. The floor-to-ceiling windows spilling sunlight over the city, the curated art on the walls, the soft hum of technology woven into every corner. My desk wasn't cluttered with papers or crumbs like the homes they remembered me in. It was sleek, polished, commanding. They paused, as if the air itself demanded reverence. "Wow," my uncle muttered, eyes roaming over the space. "Claire, you work here?" I smiled, slow and measured. "I don't just work here. I own it." The silence that followed was thick. Ethan's smirk faltered. He glanced around, as if trying to piece together what he was seeing. The assistants moving with professional precision, the framed headlines on the wall announcing deals and partnerships with companies he recognized. Finally, he laughed, but it was hollow. "Come on. This is some kind of joke." "You?" I leaned back in my chair, crossing one leg over the other, my heels catching the light. "Do you remember that night, Ethan? You grabbed my phone and laughed at me. Told me I was nothing. That all I had was bills and desperation." His eyes darted downward. "I was just messing around. We were kids." "No," I said softly but firmly. "You were cruel, and that cruelty lit a fire you couldn't put out if you tried." I gestured to the glass wall behind me, etched with my company's name, Lynx Networks. "This empire, the one you're standing in right now, it started the moment you mocked me. You see, Ethan, my cousin, took my phone. Now I own the network." The words hung in the air like thunder. My aunt shifted uncomfortably. My younger cousin's mouth fell open. My uncle tried to speak, but the weight of it all silenced him. Ethan's face went pale. His bravado slipped, leaving something raw behind, shame, maybe fear. I stood and walked toward the window, looking out at the sprawl of skyscrapers below. "You wanted me powerless. You laughed when I had nothing. But look around. Every server, every deal, every connection, this is mine. And the world you thought I didn't belong in? I run it. When I turned back, their eyes were wide. For the first time in years, they weren't looking down on me. They were looking up. And I let the silence stretch, savoring the shift. I didn't rush to fill the silence. Power, I'd learned, wasn't in how loudly you spoke. It was in how long you could make others wait for your words. Ethan finally cleared his throat. Look, Claire, we didn't come here to fight. Things haven't been easy lately. The market's rough, you know? Some projects fell through. We thought maybe you could help. Help. The irony pressed against my ribs. Once upon a time, I had begged for help. Rides to work, a loan for textbooks, even just a sliver of encouragement. I got smirks, dismissals, reminders that I was on my own. Now the roles were reversed. I walked back to my desk and sat, folding my hands neatly on the glass surface. So let me understand this. You mocked me for years. You made me feel small. And now, because life isn't as kind to you as you thought it would be, you want my support. No one spoke. My aunt's hands twisted in her lap. My uncle stared at the floor. Ethan shifted, his confidence unraveling thread by thread. Fine, I said, finally. I'll help. But on my terms. Ethan's head lifted quickly, hope flickering in his eyes. Anything. Just tell me what you need. I leaned forward. First, honesty. No more lies about your success or your failures. You want my backing? You tell the truth, even when it stings. He nodded, too quickly. Second, I continued, respect. You don't talk down to people because of what they don't have. Not your employees, not your family, not the waitress bringing your coffee. If I ever hear about you humiliating someone the way you humiliated me, we're done. This time, his nod was slower. Third, I looked at my aunt and uncle. You stopped dismissing dreams that don't fit your narrow definition of success. You told me once that technology wasn't for girls, that I should find something safe, something simple. You don't get to tell anyone what they can or can't be anymore. Not me, not your kids. My younger cousins exchanged a glance, their eyes wide with something like relief. And last, I said, letting the word sharpen, gratitude. You came here today because you need me. You will acknowledge that. You will not act as if this empire fell into my lap. You will recognize the work, the years, the nights I nearly broke myself building this. The room was still. My voice didn't shake, not like it used to when I was 19, begging for scraps of respect. I'll help, I said again, softer now. But I'm not here to save you. I'm here to set terms. If you want my network, my resources, my influence, you rise to meet me as equals or you don't rise at all. Ethan swallowed hard. My aunt's eyes brimmed with tears. She quickly wiped away. My uncle let out a shaky breath. For the first time in my life, I wasn't asking them for anything. They were asking me. And the balance had never felt so sweet. In the weeks that followed, something shifted. It wasn't instant. Not a fairy tale transformation, but it was real. Ethan stopped flooding my inbox with desperate requests and started sending short, blunt updates. Met with 3 clients. Practiced the pitch. Didn't get them, but I'll try again. The tone was different, stripped of arrogance, layered with humility. It was strange at first, almost unrecognizable, but I could feel the edges softening. My aunt called me late one evening, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. Claire, she said, I owe you an apology. For the things I said when you were younger. For making you believe you had to be less than what you are. I see you now, and I'm proud. I sat there in my kitchen, a glass of wine in hand, staring at the folded slip of paper pinned to my fridge. What they mock, you master. The same words my grandmother had given me all those years ago. She was gone now, but her handwriting still carried me. I could almost hear her voice, warm and steady, reminding me that dignity and power weren't born from revenge, but from resilience. My younger cousins reached out too, curious and eager. They asked questions about coding, about startups, about what it really took to build something from nothing. I didn't hold back. If they wanted to learn, I would teach them. Because legacy wasn't just about owning the network, it was about passing the keys to the next generation. One evening, as the city lights flickered outside my office window, I caught my reflection in the glass. The same woman who once clutched a cracked phone with trembling hands now stood tall, her empire humming beneath her fingertips. I whispered to myself, almost like a prayer, I am not the girl they mocked. I am the woman they couldn't imagine. And with a steady breath, I turned back to my desk, phone buzzing once again, not with ridicule, but with opportunity. Because my cousin may have taken my phone, but I built a life where I own the network.